I want you to stop right now and think about the last time you complained about something. Maybe it was the traffic or perhaps your bank account balance. Maybe it was your body, your job, your neighbor, or even the weather. Now notice something peculiar that happens every single time you complain. The thing you're complaining about doesn't get better. Instead, it gets worse, or it multiplies, or it just seems to bring all its friends along. This isn't a coincidence. This is a law. A spiritual law. Darling, I've watched this play out in thousands of lives, including my own. And I'm here to tell you something that might sound absurd at first. But once you truly understand it, it will rearrange your entire existence. The universe is not punishing you when bad things happen. The universe is simply responding to the frequency you're broadcasting. And gratitude, real gratitude, the kind that rises up from your bones even when circumstances look grim, is the single most powerful frequency you can emit. You see, most people have this completely backwards. They say, when I get the money, then I'll be grateful. When I get the relationship, then I'll be grateful. When my body heals, when my children behave, when my boss appreciates me, then I'll be grateful. But that's like saying, when the room gets warm, then I'll light the fire. You are the fire, darling. You are the one who sets the temperature of your life. I learned this the hard way. I learned it over and over until it finally cracked me open. I remember standing in my apartment years ago, bills stacked on the table like a tower of judgment, my bank account gasping for air. Everything in me wanted to panic. Everything in me wanted to curse the unfairness, to rail against the lack. And I started to go down that road. I started to feel that familiar tightness in my chest, that victim story warming up in my throat. But something stopped me. Maybe it was grace. Maybe it was exhaustion from all the years of fighting reality. But I stopped. I looked around that little apartment and I started to speak out loud. I thank you for this roof. I thank you for this bed. I thank you for these walls that keep me warm. I thank you for the water that runs clean from the tap. And something shifted. Not in my bank account, not yet, but in me. The tightness released. The frequency changed. And within days, not weeks, not months, but days, money came from unexpected sources. Client I'd forgotten about. A refund I didn't know I was owed. The universe had been waiting for me to change the channel. I stopped rehearsing poverty. I stopped telling myself the story of lack. And within weeks, my external world began to shift. Not because I forced it, not because I manipulated reality, but because I stopped standing in my own way. You see, most people think manifestation is about addition. Adding more techniques, more affirmations, more rituals. But it's actually about subtraction. It's about removing the mental blocks, the fearful thoughts, the contradictory beliefs that keep your good at bay. Your mind is like a radio tower, constantly broadcasting. And the universe, this intelligent, responsive field of energy, is constantly tuning in. When you broadcast fear, you get evidence of things to fear. When you broadcast lack, you get evidence of scarcity. When you broadcast unworthiness, opportunities pass you by without you even noticing them. But here's the beautiful part. You can change the station anytime you want. I had a student once who came to me desperate. She'd been unemployed for 8 months. She was highly qualified, sending out dozens of applications weekly but getting nowhere. She asked me, "What am I doing wrong?" I asked her what she said to herself every morning when she woke up. She looked confused, then admitted, "I usually think, another day of this nightmare. How will I pay rent? Nobody wants to hire me." There it was, her morning broadcast. Her signal to the universe. I gave her one assignment for 30 days. Before your feet touch the floor, say this: "My perfect work manifests today in perfect ways. I am guided to the right opportunity." That's it. No job hunting strategies, no resume tweaking. Just change the mental channel first. 3 weeks later, she called me, voice shaking. A former colleague had reached out randomly, someone she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. They were hiring for a position that hadn't even been posted yet. It was perfect for her background. She got the job, better title, higher pay than she'd been looking for. Coincidence? No. Correspondence. The outer reflecting the inner. Let me show you what I mean with something that happened just last week. A woman came to me, wringing her hands, telling me her husband was cold, distant, and never spoke to her with tenderness. She said, "He's changed. He used to be so loving." I asked her one question. "How do you speak to him in your mind?" She went silent. Then quietly she confessed, I criticize him constantly. I think about all the ways he disappoints me. I rehearse arguments while I'm cooking dinner. There it was. The inner conversation creating the outer experience. I told her, your husband is simply the mirror. He's showing you what you're broadcasting. Change the inner and watch the outer shift without you lifting a finger to manipulate him. She looked at me like I'd handed her a golden key because I had. You see, most people are trying to change the reflection. They're standing in front of the mirror making faces, wondering why the mirror won't smile first. They're rearranging the furniture in the reflection instead of moving the actual chair. It's exhausting and it doesn't work. The universe is a perfect mirror. It has no choice but to reflect back what you're holding in consciousness. That's law. That's mechanics. Not sometimes. Always. So when you say, I can't afford that, the universe says, you're right. You can't. When you say, nobody appreciates me, the universe arranges experiences to confirm it. When you say, I'm always alone, the universe clears the room. You're not a victim of circumstances. You're the author of them. And here's where it gets really interesting, where people stumble. They think, fine, I'll just think positive thoughts. And they paste affirmations over doubt like wallpaper over cracks. But the subconscious knows. The feeling tone knows. You can say, I am prosperous, 1,000 times, but if underneath you're terrified of the bills, if your solar plexus is clenched with fear, guess which signal is louder? The universe responds to conviction, not repetition. It responds to the feeling, the assumption, the inner knowing. Not the words you're reciting while your stomach churns with disbelief. This is why I say you must feel it real before you see it real. Let me tell you about Mary. She came to me desperate, clinging to affirmations like a drowning woman clutches driftwood. Every morning she stood before her mirror and declared, I am financially abundant. Money flows to me effortlessly. Beautiful words, powerful words. But when I asked her to close her eyes and feel into those words, do you know what happened? Her shoulders tensed, her jaw clenched. Deep in her solar plexus, there was a knot of fear so tight it practically screamed, this isn't true and you know it. She was speaking abundance while marinating in lack. And the universe, bless it, doesn't respond to our finest speeches. It responds to our dominant vibration, to what we're actually emanating from our core. So we stopped the affirmations entirely. I know that sounds radical, but hear me clearly. I would rather you spend 5 seconds in genuine feeling than 5 hours in hollow repetition. Instead, I asked Mary to find just one moment in her past when she felt truly provided for. Not rich, not wealthy, just provided for. Safe, secure, held by life. She remembered being 7 years old, coming home to find her mother had baked her favorite cookies without being asked. That feeling of someone is thinking of me, caring for me, providing for me, that was real. That was accessible. That feeling didn't trigger resistance. And from that feeling we built every day. She would close her eyes and return to that sense of being cared for by life. She didn't affirm abundance. She didn't visualize mansions. She simply practiced the feeling of being supported. Within 3 weeks, an old client reached out with a project. Within 2 months, an unexpected tax refund arrived. Within 6 months, she had tripled her income. This is what I mean by feeling it real. You don't need to manufacture feelings about things so far outside your current reality that every cell in your body rebels. You need to find the essence of what you desire and locate it somewhere in your actual experience. Then amplify it. Let me tell you about a woman who came to me absolutely desperate for a great relationship. She'd been alone for 7 years, and every visualization she attempted felt hollow because she had no recent reference point for romantic love. I can't feel it, she told me. I just feel ridiculous pretending someone's there when my bed's been empty for so long. So I asked her a different question. When was the last time you felt completely comfortable with another person? Not romantic, just at ease. Safe, known. She thought for a moment. Last Tuesday, coffee with my friend Janet. We laughed until my sides hurt. I didn't have to explain myself or edit my thoughts. It was effortless. That's it, I said. That feeling of effortless companionship. That's the essence of what you're really seeking in a partner. Not the Hollywood version. That actual feeling you had Tuesday. Can you recall it now? She closed her eyes. Her whole body softened. Yes, I can feel it completely. Then that's your reality, I told her. That feeling exists in your life right now. You're not pretending or manufacturing anything. You're simply acknowledging that the essence of what you desire is already present, and you're claiming more of it. Within 3 months, she met someone. But here's what fascinated me. She told me the relationship felt familiar from the first conversation. It was like Tuesday coffee, she said. But with someone who also wanted to build a life with me. This is the secret most teachers won't tell you because it sounds too simple. You don't need to feel the whole manifestation. You need to feel the essence. And the essence is always already present somewhere in your experience. Always. The person seeking financial freedom doesn't need to feel like a millionaire. They need to recall that moment last month when they bought groceries without checking their account first. That ease, that breath, that's the essence. That exists. That's real. Amplify that. The person wanting vibrant health doesn't need to conjure the experience of running a marathon if they're currently bedbound. They need to remember what it felt like to take one full breath without pain, or to sleep through the night, or to laugh without it hurting. Find the essence. It's always there, even in the smallest moment. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your face during a morning walk. Maybe it's the way your favorite song still makes your shoulders move, even when everything else feels heavy. Maybe it's the taste of something that reminds you of better days, or the sight of something beautiful that catches you off guard. These moments are not accidents. They are invitations. The universe is constantly extending its hand to you, saying, "Come back. You belong here in this moment, in this breath." And here's what I know with absolute certainty. Your healing does not require you to forgive anyone who hurt you before you're ready. It does not require you to get over it on anyone's timeline but your own. It does not require you to be positive when you need to be honest. It does not require you to shrink your pain to make others comfortable. Your healing is yours. It belongs to you, and it will unfold in its own perfect timing. I've watched people try to rush this process. They think if they just read enough books, attend enough workshops, or repeat enough affirmations, they can somehow bypass the valley. They can't. None of us can. The valley is where the transformation happens. The valley is where you discover what you're actually made of. And what you're made of is stronger than you know. You think you're fragile because you've been broken. But breaking is not the same as being weak. Sometimes the breaking is what makes space for something new. Sometimes you have to fall completely apart before you can rebuild yourself into someone who actually fits your own life. I rebuilt myself more times than I can count. Each time I thought I wouldn't survive it. Each time I did. And each time I came back different. Not better, not worse, just more myself. More honest, more real. Less willing to pretend for the comfort of others. That's what this does to you if you let it. It strips away everything that isn't essential. It burns away the performances, the people-pleasing, the need to be liked by people who don't even know you. And here's what starts to happen. You begin to speak differently. Not louder, not more aggressively, but with a quiet certainty that makes people lean in instead of tune out. You stop asking permission with your voice. You stop ending statements like they're questions, that upward inflection that says, "Please don't be mad at me for having an opinion." You stop saying "I'm sorry" before every request, apologizing as a preamble to your existence. You just state things clearly, calmly, without the cushioning. "I'm not available that day." Not, "I'm so sorry, I wish I could, but I think I might have something. I'm not sure. Let me check and get back to you and maybe I can move things around." Just, "not available." And watch what happens. Watch how people accept it because you're not giving them anything to push against. You're not leaving gaps for them to wedge guilt into. You're just being clear. This is what Florence meant when she talked about the power of the spoken word. She wasn't talking about affirmations you whisper to yourself in the mirror. She was talking about claiming your reality through decisive speech, through saying what is and letting that be enough. "My word shall not return unto me void." That's not magical thinking. That's understanding that when you speak with conviction, without apology, without the wobble of people-pleasing, the universe has no choice but to take you seriously. And the people who love the old you, the accommodating you, the bendable you, some of them are going to be confused. Some are going to be hurt. Some are going to accuse you of changing, of becoming difficult, of losing your sweetness. And they're right. You are changing. You are becoming difficult to manipulate. You are losing your sweetness, the artificial kind that was slowly poisoning you. But here's the truth that holds you steady through that. Their comfort was never your responsibility. Their disappointment in your boundaries is not your emergency. Their nostalgia for the version of you that diminished yourself to make them feel bigger, that's theirs to grieve, not yours to maintain. You're not doing this to hurt anyone. You're doing this to stop hurting yourself. And here's what I want you to really hear. The people who truly belong in your life won't need you to stay small for them to feel secure. They'll celebrate your expansion. They'll meet you at your new altitude without resentment. The right relationships don't require your diminishment as the price of admission. I remember a woman who came to me paralyzed by the thought of leaving a friendship that had become toxic. She kept saying, "But we've been friends for 15 years. And I said to her, "Darling, longevity is not the same as compatibility. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they've earned a permanent lease on your future. Duration doesn't validate dysfunction. A long-standing pattern is still just a pattern. And patterns that no longer serve you are meant to be broken, no matter how historically significant they feel." The truth is, some people are meant to be in your life for a chapter, not the whole book. And when you try to keep a chapter character in a story they were never meant to finish, you end up rewriting your whole narrative to accommodate their limitations. You shrink the plot to fit their comfort zone. You dim your climax so they don't feel outshined. Stop doing that. Your evolution is not up for negotiation. Your growth is not a group decision. The universe didn't whisper your calling into a committee. It whispered it into your soul. And if the people around you can't honor that, they're showing you exactly who they are. Believe them. Now let me be clear. This doesn't mean you become cruel or cavalier with people's feelings. You can honor what was while still honoring what is. You can acknowledge the role someone played in your past without letting them dictate your future. You can be grateful for the version of the relationship that served you both, even as you release the version that no longer does. But what you cannot do, what you must not do, is sacrifice your becoming for someone else's comfort. That's not love. That's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment dressed up in the language of virtue. You know what real love looks like? Real love says, "I honor you and I honor myself." Real love doesn't require you to shrink so someone else can feel tall. Real love doesn't ask you to dim your light, so someone else isn't threatened by your brightness. I've watched people stay in situations that were clearly wrong for them, justifying it with, "But I love them." And I always want to ask, but do you love yourself? Because the universe can't deliver what you won't first claim for yourself. Here's what I know. The moment you decide you're worthy of better, everything shifts. Not eventually, not someday. Now. The very moment you draw that line in the sand and say, "This is where I stop betraying myself," the universe reorganizes itself around that decision. I've seen it happen over and over again. Someone finally says, "Enough." They stop accepting scraps. They stop making excuses for bad behavior. They stop tolerating what depletes them. And suddenly, as if by magic, though it's not magic at all, it's spiritual law, new opportunities appear. Different people show up. Doors that seemed welded shut suddenly swing open. Because here's the truth. You cannot outgive the universe. When you make space by releasing what's wrong, the universe rushes in to fill that space with what's right. But it can't do that while you're clinging to what's killing you. And yes, there's often a gap. A space between letting go and receiving. That's where faith lives. That's where most people panic and run back to what's familiar, even if it's toxic. They can't tolerate the uncertainty. They'd rather have guaranteed misery than possible magic. But that gap, that's sacred ground. That's where transformation happens. That's where you discover who you are when you're not contorting yourself to fit someone else's dysfunction. I want you to get this deep in your bones. Your standards are not negotiable. Your peace is not up for debate. Your dignity is not a bargaining chip. And anyone who makes you feel like you're asking for too much by wanting basic respect and consideration is showing you exactly who they are. Believe them the first time, not the 15th time after you've exhausted yourself trying to make them see your worth. Because your worth isn't determined by someone else's capacity to see it. Your value isn't up for debate. It isn't contingent on performance or persuasion. You are worthy because you exist. Period. And here's what I know about walking away from what doesn't serve you. It creates space. Space for what does. Space for relationships that feel easy, not exhausting. Space for people who show up consistently, not occasionally. Space for love that doesn't require you to shrink, perform, or prove. I've watched people cling to jobs that drain them, friendships that felt one-sided, relationships that required constant management. And I've asked them why. Why stay where you're tolerated when you could go where you're celebrated? The answer is almost always fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of starting over. Fear of being alone. But let me tell you something about that fear. It's lying to you. Starting over isn't failure. It's courage. Being alone isn't punishment. It's preparation. The unknown isn't dangerous. It's where possibility lives. Every ending is also a beginning. Every door that closes opens another. Every person who walks away makes room for someone better aligned with who you're becoming. Trust that. And here's the final piece. Your peace is sacred. Protect it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. Your mental health, your emotional well-being, your capacity for joy. These things are not luxuries. They're necessities. And anything or anyone that consistently disrupts your peace has to go. I don't care how long you've known them. I don't care how much history you share. I don't care what it looks like to other people. Your peace is more important. So stop apologizing for boundaries. Stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. Stop waiting for permission to live a life that feels good to you. You don't need anyone's approval to honor what you need. You don't need consensus to protect your energy. You don't need validation to know what serves you and what doesn't. You already know. Deep down beneath the noise and the shoulds and the what-ifs, you already know. So trust yourself, choose yourself, honor yourself because you deserve relationships that feel like freedom, not captivity. Work that energizes you, not depletes you. A life that reflects your worth, not diminishes it. And that starts with one decision.